It's always fun when we're talking about sex, and it's, it has some studies, but again, so this one is duration of sex. So we may argue over it, but we won't argue over it. Let's just say had the shortest, and that was minutes. And then the longest, go guys, at minutes.
Be proud.
Yes.
Minute. I feel like that's a disappointment.
Yeah.
I would have expected longer. And you have to wait to the end to know what the average length of time of sex is. So
yes.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that one. Welcome back to the RevMD podcast with me, your host, Dr. Deborah Durst. So I am a traditionally trained physician that now specializes in regenerative medicine with a focus on sexual medicine. So if you're new to the podcast and you love talking about sex and opening those conversations, then like and subscribe, and hopefully you enjoy the content we're putting out. And I want to introduce my co-host, Faraday. If you are not new, you already know Faraday. But if you're new, I'm going to let Faraday introduce herself.
Hey guys, Faraday Golombieski. I am a board-certified family nurse practitioner here at Revitalize MD, and we have a fun podcast today.
This one is fun. It's always fun when we're talking about sex, and it's, it has some studies, but again,
it's more playful.
Yes. Yeah.
So have a little bit more fun with it.
Not as serious.
Not as sciencey.
Not an FDA approved, product of some sort.
A medication we argue over.
Yes. So this one is duration of sex. So we may argue over it, but we won't argue over it.
No, we might be arguing with some of the male viewers on this one.
Yeah, so this one, but there's some science. So we'll always kind of bullet point, like, again, what does sex mean? What is foreplay? Should you include both? Again, we'll dive into a study at least on it that talks about it and some opinions. And then we're going to let you know what we, hear in our office and our practice, and, men versus women and their
And you have to wait to the end to know what the average length of time of sex is. So
yes,
stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that one. So again, what is sex? In the study that we're going to talk about, that sex is penetrative sex. So basically from the time that you enter the vagina. So that is the sexual part. But, again, foreplay is that part of sex that is leading up to the penetrative sex.
But that doesn't define the time. So when we talk about the average length of time of sex, we're talking about the point from penetration to completion.
Correct. And so,
anything before and after doesn't count.
Doesn't count in this study.
It counts for the person.
Yes.
But for time, it doesn't tick the clock.
Yeah. And we have conversations all day long with men and women about sex. So we're going to let you know what we hear a lot about. So we'd love to look at some studies or look at a study. It's always interesting what you find. And then we're going to let you know what we're seeing in practice. But so that is, again, just from entry until ejaculation at the time that sex is done. And so it's almost called, if you looked at it, like an intravaginal latency ejaculation, time. But again, that's long.
It's long.
Yeah. And it's not necessary.
You lost me.
Yeah. Exactly.
Halfway through. I cashed out on that.
Yeah. That's too science-y for.
Guys, do you want to know what my IELT is?
Yes. Well, although I don't think knowing a swim score is that bad. Right?
Well, that's true.
And so, but this one is a little long, like IV. That's long. So anyhow, and then premature ejaculation is part of that, that might actually
play a role.
Yeah, play a role in it, but also even delayed ejaculation, which we hear a lot of too. And so where the sensitivity might decrease with time. And so that is our clarification in, what foreplay, the penetrative sex, and then even premature ejaculation is an issue. It's quite common with men. And, historically, there's been meds that have been used for it, but those have been primarily putting a Band-Aid on it and not actually getting to the root source of the problem. And
that can be its own podcast. It really can, because that is multifaceted.
Correct.
There are lots of different medications, treatments, psychogenetic things going. There's a lot going on there.
There is. And again, I think that the medication, there's techniques and, men have, again, forums talking about that. But I think that also delayed ejaculation would be another podcast topic. So those are ones that you're interested in, because I do feel like we hear that a lot where
Premature
sensitivity
and delayed.
decreases with time. So
Both sides of that coin we see.
yes. And
So if you're interested, leave us a note.
yes. And definitely let us know if you want to hear about those, because I think that that is a missing piece. So we will do that at some point. But so this interesting study that we're going to do was from a psychologist at the University of Queensland, which hosted, again, 500 men. And they used a blind timer to kind of say, so as soon as they started the penetrative sex part, they had to put on a timer. Maybe a little awkward, but they managed to get into the study, and there were 500 men with them. 5 countries, and this is what I think is interesting. So the 5 countries were the US, UK, Turkey, Netherlands, and Spain. And it was the University of Queensland, and Australia wasn't one of the countries.
Isn't that
Yeah. I just
crazy?
say that. So like, obviously someone didn't want to be studied, right? And that was the actual primary investigator, the psychologist that was doing the study. So, and then we thought, well, maybe the University of Queensland isn't actually in Queensland or Australia, but
it is.
yeah. So I thought that was a little different. Just an interesting takeaway. But basically,
A little tidbit.
I know. Interesting why you wouldn't include Australia. But anyhow, maybe he wasn't living there then. Who knows? But he couldn't be living all other five other places either. But anyhow, not a huge variability in like the underlying demographics of the patients, like age, health issues,
Fitness levels,
Yeah.
anxiety, stress,
Yeah. So not a lot of variability there.
relationships, all that was all pretty similar.
Yeah. And so if you were to think about, again, the time frame that we're going to first start with, let's just say Turkey had the shortest, and that was 3.7 minutes. And then the longest, go guys, UK at 10 minutes.
Be proud. 10
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah. And they did say condom, circumcision, all that played no role. So again, the underlying, kind of demographic or, medical issues did not vary much. So it didn't seem like it changed whether they were circumcised or not, or whether they had condoms on or not. But again, yeah, the longest and shortest. And I think that, again, I would love to hear what you think the average time frame is, because
5.4 minutes. Like,
yeah.
I feel like that's a disappointment.
Yeah.
I would have expected longer. But then, I will say I'm going to throw our cameraman under the bus. He's like, let me guess, 5 minutes. And I'm like, Dr. Durst pointed out, congratulations, you're average.
Let's go.
I mean,
let's go a little bit further than that, because he kept asking what was the time. And you kept saying, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, talking about like the podcast and how long we were talking about it. And so she kept answering. He's like, that's a long time, which
it's a long time. And I'm like,
yeah, which we didn't
wait,
think so.
What?
And so anyhow, and finally I was like, no, he's asking about what was the answer. And so, but you were saying, 15 or 20, he thought that was long. But the bottom line is that because women on average,
I told him he needed more cardio.
Yeah. This will provide cardio, just so you know. Like, this is definitely zone 2. You can talk during it. Like you can
Zone
talk.
2, that's our target.
Yeah. Zone 2, you should have 150 to 200, minutes a week. And so this could be part of it, because you could talk during it. You could dirty talk during it, and so this is a perfect cardio.
Well, that might shorten their time.
Yeah, solutions. This is true. Well, I don't know. Like, maybe for her, maybe for them, maybe both. Who knows? That's a whole nother podcast topic. Dirty talk.
But like, is that surprising to anyone? Like, I was surprised by that number. Were you surprised?
I was super surprised. Yes, but I would think that, if you're providing a lot of other leading up to
all the
it,
foreplay.
Yes.
Right. So that maybe duration, length of time isn't as important as long as there's the foreplay. But at the same time, I
Correct.
just like 3.7 minutes.
So women wanted 25, right? And on average, women want 25.
Like, here's another thing. We're on
According
way
to
ends of the different
surveys.
spectrum right here.
Correct. But I think, are they just talking about penetrative on the 25? So my issue is, again, a lot of sex for women, number one, is in the brain. And so, it's 99% of sex for women is in the brain. But also, arousal is a huge issue. And so, a lot of time should be spent externally because the clitoris is strictly a sensual and sexual organ and 7,000 nerve fibers. We've had that, on our channel before.
Yes, but over
So,
5,000 on the G spot, which is internal.
yes,
Every 3 minutes.
but up to 80% of women potentially don't have orgasms with internal, or at least, again, is there strictly an internal? Who knows? Like, because the clitoris is very closely related
True.
to the vaginal canal and the G spot, and so it's more of a complex than it is a spot.
I mean, we were just talking about that.
Yeah,
Distance
like,
between the clitoris and the vaginal opening can play a role in the amount of orgasms.
yes, and the
And
ease,
of
of
orgasms.
Yeah, so we could go on for a long time about all of this. So I think that if you spend an adequate time getting her ready for penetration, then 5 minutes is fine because you probably wouldn't even need that. She should be close before you even enter. So again, there's lots
you
of
being
things
all
you
positive.
can do. I know. Well,
Usually that's my role.
I know. Well, really, your role is just opposing in some way. So we're bantering about it because, again, you are all for. So obviously, 25 minutes was like, definitely probably been a low number for Faraday in her desire, but 5 was definitely off the chart for her. That was
I mean,
way
I just
too
was
low.
surprised.
Yeah.
I just would have thought longer.
Yeah. Well, and again,
Like the
I
UK,
think,
an average of 10.
yeah. No, so they weren't even, that was the longest and they weren't
Yeah.
approaching it. So again, I would venture to say, because a lot of times it's about communication. So number one, it's about communication with sex. So we will say this over and over again. So in practice, what we're seeing, so that we can apply this into like a clinical setting, not clinical like in that it's really just practice. We're opening conversations. We're
What we're
breaking
hearing,
through.
what our patients are telling us,
Yeah,
our feedback that we hear.
yeah, breaking through those taboos and having conversations. And so, patients having a conversation, number one, you need to be on the same page with sex with your partner. Sex drive has to be about equal in your partner, like, or the
Well, I guess if you
relationship
don't
will
want
suffer
it,
eventually, right?
That 5 minutes probably is really long.
Correct. And so, like, I think
other side of that.
opening the conversations and making sure you're on the same page, because as long as everyone's satisfied, if there's a low sex drive and a woman in 5 minutes is adequate and she's happy and both are happy, it's only if one is unhappy and one is happy that there's an
True.
issue. So it's a
True.
communication and alignment. And I would venture to say that if truly enough time was spent with arousal, which increases lubrication, and this we hear from women over and over again, that they're pretty content when that arousal is adequate and therefore arousal is lubrication. So they're almost to the point where they could orgasm by the time they have penetrative sex. And so, and again, there's like things that, I have read in certain books that it's like it's not about the orgasm, it's about the pleasure. But I would venture to say that for almost all men and women in our practice, it's also about the orgasm. So I don't think that that's very realistic. And again, I don't think that that has to decrease just because you're older and it's harder for you to have an orgasm, because there are things we can do for that. So that is our personal experience, professional experience in the office, having conversations with the men and women on a daily basis. And so I'm sure that you have some input on that.
I concur.
You would definitely never say okay again, right?
I concur.
But yeah, because again, you can't, these are the conversations.
They
that
are,
yeah.
exactly. And you're right. As long as both partners are on the same page,
Yeah.
it makes a big difference. Because the other side of that is that if usually it is typically the male that has a higher drive than the female, as hormones deplete, as we age. So if as a female with a low drive that's not wanting to be intimate, I bet that 5 minutes is really long. So there is that other side of it too.
Look at you being
Look
all
at that.
positive. Yeah. Look at you looking
I
at a
concur.
different perspective. I think that everything in life, and we run into this every day, even problems in our practice, like every single problem comes down to communication. And so if you don't have the communication, so if something is bothering you, or that's not long enough, or that's okay, 5 minutes is fine, but I need this leading up to it, I think you just need to have those conversations. And that's what we open in the office. And people don't have a lot of places to go and talk about sex. Sometimes they're not talking to their partners about it. And again, Faraday's very good at small group therapy too. During,
It occurs
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. So even with couples, probably even, again, we have conversations with couples all the time, but again,
But it's about
yeah,
being on the same page.
yeah,
That
you've
is
got to
very
have those
true.
conversations. And so you're not
And
frequently
sometimes our
having it with
office is the
family.
only place they
Yeah.
have them.
Well, that's the whole point, is they're not having it sometimes with the family. We
Or
already know
friends.
that men aren't sitting around drinking their beers and talking about that
Their ED
either.
issues, right? It's just not
Yeah.
happening.
No, it's not happening. So they want to have it somewhere. And then us having the conversation, sometimes opening it with the couple directly, or, just bringing up the fact that if they have the conversations, because as long as both are happy, everything's good. But if somebody has a really high sex drive and they're not getting sex enough and they're unhappy about it, that is going to lead to issues unless you have the conversation and look for solutions. So I think conversations and communication is key. And then you find out whether 5 is good for both of you. That's fair, right?
That's fair.
Yeah,
So, were you surprised by that number?
I know. So let us know what
Let
you
us know.
think. And again, just keep in mind when you comment, because we know that the longest was 10 minutes. So the average
And the
of
shortest
length,
was just under 4,
yeah,
3.7
3.
minutes.
Yeah, so we already know that's realistic. So don't come to us with the hour on, and lots of
Hey,
it.
but
An
if you're
occasional,
doing that, I applaud you.
correct?
You've got good cardio.
Correct. And again, that is again, 100 comments about that. So keep in mind it's penetrative sex. So not just, not foreplay and penetration. So,
Or the
and
tantric
then
and
you
all the
can
others.
brag all you want otherwise, for sure. But I look forward to the comments. And so please leave them, like, and subscribe. Let us know what you want to hear more about. And we already are going to do a premature ejaculation and delayed ejaculation, just to cover those topics and talk about potential treatments. But again, we're willing to deep dive into anything sexual wellness or wellness.